responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show.
Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back. Yes, that's right. It is time for another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It wouldn't be another day in the studio if we didn't have another series of technical difficulties. Not my fault. Of course, it's not my fault. The fault lies with... Wait a second. Am I running on X? Yeah, X is working. Okay, good. And we're working on Getter. Everything is working. Rumble Studio was down. I couldn't make my show like all day. I waited till the last possible second. And then I had to do it the old-fashioned way. So... we are here, and I just hope everything works properly. So listen, big news in the world of elections. We've got a whistleblower from the Michigan Secretary of State just being announced by Sheriff Dar Leaf, the, in my opinion, probably the greatest constitutional sheriff in the United States of America. And we've also, yes, that is Tina Peters on the screen. We've also gotten a tip from a viewer, my good friend Alex, about a new position for Miss Tina Peters and an FBI investigation into a California election. My goodness, guys, get ready because it's about to get spicy. Anyways, if you wouldn't mind, just sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn. We're about to get into it right about now. All right, my friends, listen, I have a public service announcement. Someone sent me an email last night. I know they're a viewer of the show, fan of the show, and I just it's just easier for me to say it like this than it is to type out an email. So apparently, sometimes, or apparently all the time, I guess, this gentleman has a hard time hearing the clips that I play on the show. And from my experience, not everybody has that experience. I know that some of the clips are lower volume than others of the clips, and there's only so much that I can tune it up on my soundboard. So when I realize the clips are low, I pump up the volume as much as I can. Sometimes it helps. Other times it doesn't help as much as you might hope it would. And then for some people, because of the device they're using, the audio is only going to go to a certain volume anyways. So it sucks more for you. And I'm sorry for that, but I can't help that. Now, you might say, well, hey, Steven Crowder, he can get his clips at the correct volume, or some other podcaster can get his clips at the correct volume. I'm doing the show live. I have no support staff. I have no producers. I don't have the time to go and download the clips and then audio correct them because somebody else didn't do it correctly before I play it. So everything that you're seeing is happening live, and it's a very bare bones type of a circumstance that I have right here. Yeah, wear headphones. I guarantee you that the audio is going to be louder than it would be if you're just listening to it on your phone. I wish that there was some other answer that I had for you, and it would be super awesome if I had like a production staff that was running these clips from behind the scenes, but literally everything you see is me doing it live on the fly. And so I will, continue to promise that I will always do my best to make sure that you guys have the greatest possible experience. And I just want you to know that I'm only human and my efforts only extend so far. So there you go. Anyways, you guys, clips are often quiet on mine. You are doing a fantastic job. Thank you, DJ Tinfoil. So yeah, the problem is that every single clip that is uploaded to the internet by some random person is tuned to a different level. And so, I'm listening to it and it sounds fine to me, so I don't go up any higher, but I'm doing what I can, and I just want you guys to know that. So listen, like I said, We have a lot of really great things to talk about today. We are going to talk about all of the election results that came in Florida yesterday. Some wins, some losses, and that it depends on who you are. Maybe you are happy about the results that we got yesterday. I know others are not going to be happy about the results we got yesterday, but I wanted to open the show with probably one of the most heartfelt things that I've seen in a while. Usually I try to open up with something funny, and I saw this and I totally broke down earlier today. And so I wanted to share it with you guys because it was really awesome. Now, Matt Van Swol, he posted this. This is a news story about a man who grew up in an orphanage. Okay. His father, it turns out, was a GI that was stationed in Germany. His father met a woman in Germany. That woman ended up having a baby. She never let the father know that he had a son on the way. And so when his rotation in Germany was over, he shipped back to the United States. This young man was given up by the mother, and he grew up in a Catholic orphanage, and he never got adopted. Okay. And so when he grew up, he went and tried to find his family, and he found them in the United States. And this is honestly just one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen. And every time I see something like this, it gives me hope for the future of humanity. So on record, this is up as loud as Twitter will allow me to. If somebody in the chat thinks that it's too quiet, I will tune it up on the soundboard. But you see this and you just let me know.
For the first time in a lifetime, Joshua Schneelo meets his family.
You're home, baby. You're home. Yeah.
Raised in Germany by a Catholic orphanage for 19 years, Joshua grew up wondering when it would be his turn to go home.
Why is nobody picking me up?
Though he was never adopted, he never stopped looking for his place. Joshua remembers the prayer he made daily over a rosary.
Please, one day I want to meet my father.
A year ago, his wife gifted him an ancestry kit.
A little bit of fear that he gets rejected again. But I also knew that he has a family. He belongs.
A genealogy professional got to work on helping Joshua find family.
Well, hello.
And after finding a couple relatives,
She called me and said, I may found your father.
Arthur Colbert served 2 years in the military, stationed in Europe.
I did not know I had left a baby over there in Germany when I was transferred back to the United States. And if I had known that, I would have brought him back to the United States with me.
Without revealing his identity, Joshua called his dad under the guise of insurance needs, hoping to get a few questions answered.
And he actually opened the door by asking me, hey, I hear an accent. Where's your accent for? I said, from Germany. And he said, oh, I was German. I know Germany. I said, oh, really?
Was you ever in Germany? I said, yes.
Oh, when were you in Germany? He said 1969, 1970. And then I became more and more nervous.
Were you ever in Kaiserslautern, Germany? I said, yes.
And I stopped talking. I was like, oh, I just spoke with my father.
And one DNA test later,
The laboratory called me and said,
He's not gay. He's just German. He has a wife.
your dad by
99.9%.
And it was like, wow.
I said, oh, Lord, let's go.
We found him.
days later, they met.
Both shedded tears because we were happy to have met one another.
Putting my rosary around his neck. The rosary I prayed every time when I prayed, he has it now.
And Saturday in Jefferson, Texas, Joshua walked alongside his dad into a room of people waiting to love him.
The biggest fear you have as an orphan is to be pushed away. Because that's what you had to deal your entire life as a child. Because you have to think about why I'm not loved, why I'm not home, why I'm not being picked up anymore. What's going on? What did I do wrong? I'm emotional too right now. Because that's the biggest gift you can get, to be loved.
Katie Parker, East Texas News Weekend.
So it just tears me up, dude. I don't know why I'm so affected by it. I mean, obviously, you know, I loved my dad, lost my dad. He served in Germany. So I think about that. But I also think about the friends that I've had over the years who were also adopted. And, you know, they've expressed these exact same things to me. You know, I mean, it sucks that his mom gave him up. And, you know, he doesn't talk about his mom, probably because he knows that his mom didn't want him. That rejection is something that he already had reconciled many years ago, but he lived his entire life thinking, praying every single day. The only thing I want is to meet my dad. And he grows up and he has the opportunity. You know, a lot of people have nothing good to say about DNA tests. And I realize that they can be used for really nefarious purposes. But because of this modern technology, it allowed this man to be reunited with his father and then to come into the United States of America and meet his entire extended family. And I just think that that is such a beautiful thing. And I'm so happy for him. And I hope that he and his dad have many years together. Because, you know, obviously, you know, he was born in 1969, 1970. He's obviously, you know, I mean, his dad's going to be pretty old. I mean, I'm really happy for him that his dad's still alive, because how much more heart-wrenching would it have been if he came and found out who his dad was, only to find out that he would never be able to meet him because his dad wasn't there. And then he would never be able to ask that question, you know, I mean, and like his dad, rather than saying, yeah, I just walked away from you, he said, I would have brought you with me. I mean, that is just the most beautiful thing. And again, it gives me a lot of hope for the human race when I see something like this happening. All right, next, we also have to talk about the people of Indiana. This was another tip from a very good friend of mine, viewer in the chat, number one Indiana dad. Apparently this week, there was massive flooding. No, he didn't have any siblings that he knew about. His mother gave him up for adoption immediately, and that was never mentioned in the story. So I'm going to say that probably he doesn't have any siblings, and if he does, then, I mean, he's going to know about that. Oh, now you're probably asking about siblings that maybe his father had sired in the United States. They didn't mention that, but they did mention that he had an extended family of 60-plus people that were waiting to meet him. All right, so Bill messaged me on my email, and he said, you know, the people of Indiana need some serious prayers right now. Now, number one, Indiana dad, obviously, he's an Indiana guy. But luckily, he was not there. He was taking a relative to college in another state, so he missed all of this. But, of course, he came home to find out that there obviously was a lot of flooding, major devastation. So emergency crews in central Indiana have been just night and day rescuing people, pets, farm animals, and these storms have just devastated communities. So I wanted to make sure that we put out some special prayers for the people of Indiana. I don't know if there's any of you out there in the chat who are also Indiana folks, if you've been affected by this. But I wanted to make sure that we talked about it, because this is obviously going to affect a lot of people. So the floodwaters, I guess, have begun to recede. But over the weekend, the Indianapolis Fire Department conducted 56 water rescues. They helped about 100 people and 46 pets get to safety. Obviously, if this was affecting farms and those farm animals were affected, it's going to be devastating for the people who own those farms. I wanted to show you some of the video clips here that were collected as part of the efforts. I am going to turn this one down because it's just music, so we'll shut that all the way down. This is in Noblesville, Indiana. Okay, Casper in the Rumble chat says, I'm also from Indiana, and some of the roads around my daughter in Indianapolis have been washed away. It's a mess. You can see here that obviously people's homes are completely underwater. I've never heard of flooding like this in Indiana, so I'm not sure like how unusual this is, what exactly led to it. But you've clearly got roads and bridges that are washed out. So this is definitely going to create some major issues going forward. And it's probably going to end up being a job for the Army Corps of Engineers to come on in and set things right.
Severe weather. Senator Jim Banks is speaking out on the conditions in the Midwest, saying the amount of damage is staggering. Listen.
53 counties in our state have been devastated, impacted in a big way. We have rivers flowing all through our state, and the flooding is really bad. Thousands of families affected, millions of Hoosiers without power right now. President Trump called me yesterday. We talked about the flood damage, and he signed the declaration of emergency for our state and committed to send millions of dollars here to help rebuild Indiana.
Our next guest had 2 of her businesses damaged in the floods as 5 feet of water swept across her properties. Joining me now is the owner of Cornerstone Campground and Retreat Center, Cindy Gilmore. Cindy, thank you for coming on and talking about this. I know this is probably very hard to talk about. I couldn't imagine, in some areas.
So Susan over on Rumble says, we were told it was a 500-year flood level in central Illinois. Now, also, evacuations from the Carmel Fire Department said that they rescued about 40 people and they evacuated about 20 horses from a local farm. Crews went to neighbors' homes along the river to alert them, and many of the streets were completely flooded, so authorities had to use boats to come in and get people out. Here you can see a guy standing on high ground and clutching.
This is just complete insanity. We're just experiencing the worst flooding I've ever seen in the history of this town, I would assume.
Oh, gosh, that was his boat. He was standing on his boat. I bet you he was out there trying to help people.
Over where I was at, in certain places, it was up by collarbone up here. We got hammered by rain last night, all through the night. Awesome lightning storm. I came into work. I work at a heating and plumbing place here in town, and we obviously started with a bunch of sump up calls. We just watched the water get worse and worse and worse. There's a school bus right down that road. One side is just below the windows. The other side, it's up above because it's cocked at an angle. Yeah. So that bus is completely flooded.
So, yeah, this is, while this is happening, you've got drought conditions down here in Florida. The Everglades are in many places basically completely sapped. Water table is way down out west. The Colorado River has a lot less water than it normally does. What is that giant, that Lake Mead? Lake Mead is extremely low, critically low. It's reaching the point where there is not going to be enough water to sustain the people in that area. All right, now, also wanted to give you an update on the story we got yesterday at the tail end of the show from my good friend Filter Dog over there on Pilled. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has officially responded to Keith Ellison, the Attorney General from Minnesota, because yesterday, as we learned on the show live, his office had filed a lawsuit against Greg Abbott to try to force the extradition of that ICE agent that was involved in a shooting with a series of violent migrants, illegal aliens that were attacking them with a shovel and trying to stop an arrest from taking place. So Mary Moriarty is that George Soros-funded prosecutor who had actually charged this ICE agent, Christian Castro. He's currently looking, if he goes back to Minnesota, at 4 counts of second-degree assault and 1 count of falsely reporting a crime. I don't know how they can try to charge him with falsely reporting a crime. I mean, he was a federal agent, and he was trying to apprehend an illegal alien, maybe several illegal aliens. So there's no false reporting of a crime. This is obviously just a situation where they are trying to load up as many charges as possible. It's pretty disgusting. There's also another case where that happened, and that was in the instance of Derek Chauvin. I'm sure you guys all remember Derek Chauvin. I was going to talk about this later, but I might as well bring it up right now because Keith Ellison did the exact same thing. Now, real briefly, Derek Chauvin's attorneys are asking the state to overturn his conviction because there was never a grand jury that looked at the evidence in the case against Derek Chauvin. So if you'll remember, he had initially gotten his charges and they were just essentially railroaded through by the judge that was overseeing the case. Now, his attorney, Greg Joseph, has just argued in a 31-page filing that was sent to the court on Tuesday that his due process rights were violated because the grand jury never reviewed the evidence, never convened to review those charges against him. The Hennepin County Court District Judge Peter Cahill, who presided over this year-long due process violation by failing to convene the grand jury to consider the state's evidence at any point between the moment he was assigned the case and then the verdict. So as a result, the lawyer is arguing that this judge lacked the jurisdiction over the charges because they were never truly lawfully brought. Now, the attorney is also arguing that Governor Walz appointed Attorney General Keith Ellison to lead the case, and that as well was unlawful. If you'll remember, Ellison also added the charge of second-degree murder to the complaint that was already made against Chauvin, and then Chauvin ultimately received 2 concurrent sentences. He was sentenced to 22 and a half years on the state charges for second-degree murder, and then 21 years in prison for the civil rights violations at the federal level. So the state said that a Hennepin County prosecutor, Amy Seasey, also had chosen to withdraw from the case because she disagreed with Ellison's decision to add these additional charges against Chauvin. So again, from the filing, because Hennepin County's unlawful charges against Mr. Chauvin were not severe enough for the mob, Walz referred the case to Keith Ellison, who then signed and e-filed a second unfounded complaint against Derek Chauvin, which included the murder charge that they wanted. It is impossible to assess the trial errors in State v. Chauvin because the entire trial was a fraud. It was based on unfounded charges that were never properly brought before the court. And speaking with Alpha News, Joseph said, this is the attorney, of why the arguments laid out in the petition have not been raised previously. He said in a very short period of time, there were very fundamental and basic violations of due process. And those aren't necessarily things the defense attorneys look for normally. The political fruits of this unlawful prosecution have shaped the trajectory of this state and the world. So Keith Ellison basically did the exact same thing in this case against this ICE agent, assigning these charges, or essentially having Mary Moriarty sign these charges against Christian Castro when none of them are correct or going to offer up anything close to due process or a proper trial. So it definitely would not be a good idea for Christian Castro to make his way back to Minneapolis. Now, Keith Ellison said that Texas must extradite Christian Castro. He said he's been charged with breaking the law in Minnesota and he must face justice in Minnesota. The only reason this is happening is because he is a federal agent and he works for ICE. In Minnesota, you can shoot people in the leg all the time and you'll never even go to jail. You can get into a fight on the street, have it recorded on video and posted on YouTube. You will never end up going to jail. But God forbid you're a servant of the federal government working for ICE and you end up damaging someone's body in the course of actually doing your job. These people were all illegal, and if they hadn't fought with a federal agent, they would have never gotten injured. Now, let's take a listen to Governor Abbott. Right after this. Okay, brief statement, only 30 seconds, but it is poignant and applicable.
Well, first of all, I don't trust Tim Walz on anything, let alone something like this. But listen, while they're making demands, I got a demand of my own. And that is, it's time for Minnesota to step up and repay the United States of America and Americans for all the fraud that they've committed in their state under federal programs. And I will not respond to them at all until they step up and do what's right and they acknowledge their fault in the fraud that took place, and they fully repay the United States of America for the fraud they committed.
Now, technically, Minnesota could make a request from the U.S. Marshals to go down to Texas and take Christian Castro and forcibly bring him back to Minnesota. I sincerely doubt that that's going to happen. Now we have our answer as well from the state of Texas. There's absolutely no way they are going to oversee the extradition of Christian Castro. So essentially, Minnesota is shit out of luck at this point, And this is basically going to be a show trial in absentia if they do decide to go through with something. I would expect something like that to happen. But this is going to create a bit of a kerfuffle between the states, because generally when one state asks for the extradition of a wanted person to bring them back and serve trial, the other states are required to comply with that. I don't know of any other case where something like this has happened and one state refused to honor that extradition order. So I'll be very interested to see how it plays out. Now I have some wonderful news for you in regards to illegal immigrants who have been leeching off of the United States of America. Even if they're here and filing taxes, I don't think that they should get anything that American citizens get. But you may or may not be surprised to learn that up until today, illegal immigrants were eligible for kickbacks from a series of major refundable tax credit programs. And they were using their tax refunds to do whatever the hell they wanted. But earlier today, the Treasury Department and the IRS unveiled several new rules. These will tighten the requirements for the adoption, child, American opportunity, and earned income tax credits so that only U.S. citizens, U.S. nationals, and certain qualified aliens will be able to get them. Under President Trump, Scott Paine says, the days of illegal aliens collecting taxpayer-funded benefits are over. The federal law is clear, and the Treasury is enforcing it. American taxpayers should not be forced to foot the bill for benefits going to those who are barred by law from receiving them. These proposed regulations end the abuse, protect the integrity of the tax system, and put Americans first. So clearly, no one who is here illegally should have ever legally received any of these tax benefits. However, there was no enforcement, just as many of the specifics surrounding immigration and naturalization were not bothered to be enforced either. There was a de facto level of amnesty for many different aspects of this. Now, those 4 tax credits are refundable, which means people with a larger credit than the taxes they owe get a refund from the government. And the new rule by the administration specifically targets the refunded portion of those tax credits. They would still be allowed to use the credits to offset their federal income tax liability. I don't think that that is proper. I think that there should be absolutely no benefit whatsoever, no kickbacks of any kind. If they are here in the United States, then they should be paying taxes. I think that, frankly, the only people who should be paying taxes are foreign nationals who come to the United States to work for whatever. But if they are here illegally, they shouldn't even be filing taxes, because if they file taxes, we should be going out and finding them and arresting them. Nearly 1 million people will now be ineligible for the refunded portion of the affected refundable individual income tax credits due to this change by the administration. Refundable tax credits are like the earned income tax credit. They were enacted to help low to middle income American families and workers receive critical financial support. And these proposed regulations ensure these federally funded benefits are reserved only for eligible taxpayers and protect the integrity of every taxpayer dollar. There is an argument to be made that taxes, as they are written into law, are only meant to affect certain corporations and foreign nationals here in the United States, not citizens of the United States. That is a whole baseless conspiracy I can go down a rabbit hole on. Now, people are also predicting that this change by the administration may also affect H-1B holders and other holders of temporary visas. They may likely lose access to these refundable portions, which include, again, the child tax credit, the earned income tax credit, and the American Opportunity Tax Credit, as well as the adoption tax credit. So this Treasury proposal, we have yet to see whether or not this is going to affect H-1B or other visa holders, but I just want to put it out there into the ether. Scott Paine and the administration, if anybody is out there listening, holders of visas should not be eligible for any sort of tax break or anything. If they want to come to the United States and they want to take a job from an American, if they are here legally, they should simply be paying taxes and there should be no additional benefit. They've already gotten out of their shithole country. They've come here to the United States. If they want to become a citizen, that's something else entirely. But I don't think that we need to make it any easier for them. All right. Now, speaking of H-1B, I thought we should highlight a H-1B schemer. This woman, Sam Kesha Thuma, is a fraudster, and she is also publishing her fraud on the internet. She is 27 years old, and I want you to do just a little bit of quick math for me. Although she's 27 years old, she claims that she's got 12 to 15 years work experience, and she used that fraudulent work experience to get a job as a business analyst, earning between $150,000 and $200,000 a year. Now, on top of that, keeping in mind she is a holder of an H-1B visa, which gives her the right to hold this position, she also has a side gig. That side gig is being an internet content creator, which means she is making money as a content creator. She is essentially double dipping. H-1B rules do not allow you to have a second job, but she's doing it anyways, and nobody is saying anything about it. I'm hoping that we can now get some attention on this, and maybe the government will go and look at her situation. The real question is, how did she get away as a 27-year-old with saying that she had 12 to 15 years of experience in this industry? How did this company look at her resume and say, sure, I will buy that. That sounds great. Oh, man, my sure about that is not working. Okay. All right. Anyways, you can see here that it's obvious she lied, okay? This company probably needs to be informed about it. In these videos, you can tell a couple of quick things. She works from home, which gives her the time to double dip, to do her regular job, and then also to be an internet content creator, posting on TikTok, Instagram, or whatever. She spends a lot of time on personal things rather than doing the job that she's getting paid almost $200,000 for. This company that is hiring her and having her work from home, maybe they need to know about it. But in these videos, you see her getting dressed up, making additional videos, getting ready for her night out, going and hanging out with her boyfriend, doing her nightly ritual of her face mask and all these things that women do. But a business analyst job is supposed to be about talking to people and gathering information. It's nothing technical. So it's not a job that theoretically there is not a qualified American citizen to do that job. Americans are great at communication. It's one of the things we excel at. A 12th grade student theoretically could do her job. So why did they bring in a foreigner from another country and give an H-1B? Well, she got the job using this fake experience and apparently doing proxy interviews. She also earns this extra money illegally as a content creator. And now she's planning to get married and bring her foreign husband here on an H-4 EAD visa. He's probably going to take another $200,000 job from the hands of an American citizen. They're going to have children here in the United States of America because of birthright citizenship. They will immediately get birth certificates and the right to vote and be citizens. Her parents are then going to come here on tourist visas. They're going to take care of the kids. They're also probably going to do the extended family, bring everybody here. Meanwhile, the American citizens, people who actually want to work, who are attempting to build this country, they get left in the dust. 250 years, and what do we get for it? Taxes, low wages, overpriced out of everything because these foreigners coming here, everything gets more expensive. We get little to nothing, and we don't get the recognition for having built this country. They're coming here and they're going to change it into a shithole, just like the one they left. We lose jobs, we lose money, we lose mental peace. Children are affected by drugs. These people come here. We saw in California, they were running gangs. families get broken up, and this apparently is the new America. So let's take a look at Samkesha Thuma. She showed up in 2021 on an F1 visa. Why? Because she was doing a master's program here in the United States. But the immediate moment she graduated in 2023, she got a job at Toyota. She had only just graduated and again claimed that she had 12 to 15 years experience.
Is not you have to walk away. Sir is gonna meet his girlfriend.
This has 15,000 likes on Instagram. So I'll cut it short because her boyfriend gets there. They end up getting some takeout. You can see she does one of these collagen masks, getting beautiful for her boyfriend, sits around. She does her lotion. I don't even understand why women make these videos. It's just mindless to me. Anyways, all these wonderful products that she gets because she lives here in the United States working for $200,000 a year at Toyota. Now her boyfriend's going to come here. They're going to get married. They're going to have kids. Now you can see here on her LinkedIn where she's a business analyst for Toyota. Again, her H-1B only allows her to work at one job. And she is working at home, which is awesome. I wish I could work from home for $200,000 a year as a business analyst at Toyota. But her work experience is the Katia Institute of Technology and Science in Warangal. And then she worked at she went to Arizona State University. She was apparently a technology consultant while she was going there, and then she immediately went to work for Toyota. So yes, H-1B fraud right in front of us. All right. Now, funny enough, I meant to talk about this yesterday, and I should have just brought it up when people said in the chat that polls are fake and gay. They are. And this story tells you exactly how and why these polls are fake and gay. Not all polls are fake and gay. I used to work for a polling place. So this is the only reason that I ever talk about polls is because I understand how polls work. And I understand that the data can be good or the data can be bad. Principled Enigma says, I like your idea of charging only non-citizens income tax. Also, is your camera fan on? Yes, camera fan is definitely on. Moon Baby, thank you so much.
America great again.
Longshot Mags over there on Ko-Fi. Thank you very much, Mags. I will read that in just a moment. First of all, Moon Baby says, what up, family? I'm good to see you. Boys Blanc, thank you for the can. Sean Joe, thank you for the can. Filter Dog, thank you for the can. And Sean Joe says, does Castro not have qualified immunity as a Fed LEO? I don't know how that works. I mean, even if you were a police officer and you shot someone in the leg, as we've seen, Derek Chauvin theoretically would have had qualified immunity as a police officer, and he definitely did not kill George Floyd. But they still charged him not only with civil rights violations, but also with the second-degree murder. Okay, so let me see what Longshot Mags has said. $20 rant, thank you so much. She says, thank you for all you do to bring us the news. I appreciate you. All right, so again, I know how the data works. I know that it's all about the sample sets and it's all about the presentation. But in this instance, all of it is fake, okay? So apparently, and keeping in mind, there were all of those Democrat polls that favored the DSA candidates in Wisconsin, and people were up in arms. They were like, what's going on? We thought that the communist was supposed to win. In Michigan, the same thing happened. The polls were way off. Al-Sayed was not supposed to win, but then, of course, he beat out that really weird woman. And now the same thing is happening in Los Angeles. So initially, there was a poll that was released showing that Karen Bass was favored over Nithya Raman by like 12 points. And it also said that based upon the sample that they had taken, most of Spencer Pratt's support had gone to Karen Bass. So people were considering this data, and it turns out that the whole thing was fake. Like, they didn't even do a sample. They didn't ask anybody any questions. They just wrote a fake poll, put out fake data, and then wanted to see what happened. This was done by a company called Median Strategies. Again, they showed that about 12 percentage points ahead of Nithya Raman, and they claimed the results were based on a survey of 560 Los Angeles voters that was taken between July 30th and August 5th. They even put in a fake margin of error at 4.1%. But there was, I guess, a number of journalists that reached out. They wanted to see the data, and they ended up responding and said, you know what? The poll wasn't real. We never asked anyone anything. We just wanted to see what would happen if we told the people of Los Angeles that Nithya Raman was probably going to lose. So Median Strategies was created as a short-term social experiment. That's what they're saying, to examine how purported polling information could enter and spread through the political information ecosystem without independent verification. We are not a publicity seeking or attribution for the individuals involved, and we are declining interviews. So they won't tell anyone who created this fake polling company or who is behind this so-called social experiment. Now, the poll also said 16% of their respondents had said they voted for Pratt, and then of those, 85% were going to be voting for Bass, 7% were going to be supporting Raman. But the whole thing is fake. It's absolutely insane. And I think that this happens a lot more often than people realize. You can take data that says one thing and then spin it to say something completely different. The moral of the story here is that the people who are doing the polls are usually what you need to look at first. There were a number of questionable polls that came out down here in Florida during the primary season. And again, depending on who had paid for the data, they were saying one thing that was totally the opposite of what was actually happening. So Buck Wayne also says, thank you, Zach and Lisa, for the fun new emojis. The new accents are awesome as well. May God continue to bless you both. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. ZBM says, I would love to hear about that conspiracy theory. Could you add it to the list on baseless conspiracies? That would be an awesome episode. Thank you for the show. Always professional. Cheers. I will add that to the list of conspiracies that we need to do. I appreciate you too, buddy. Thank you very much. All right, now, continuing, we need to talk about what happened down here in Florida last night. Byron Donalds did win the primary, and he won by a fairly healthy margin. The majority of Byron Donalds' support was primarily based in the southern tip of Florida, generally where the most liberal people are. I thought that was kind of interesting. However, there are people who voted for Byron Donalds all over the state. The support was not nearly as strong in the central and northern portion of Florida as it was in the southernmost tip of Florida. Now, of course, Byron Donalds was endorsed by President Trump. He will be the Republican candidate for governor in November. I will be voting for him because I'm certainly not going to be voting for David Jolly, who is the Democrat. And also, businessman Jim Schwartzel won the GOP primary to replace Byron Donalds. And of course, President Trump congratulated him on X and Truth Social. I'm hoping that now that we have a Democrat and a Republican that are running against each other, there will be gubernatorial debates. Now, Byron Donalds was only in the House of Representatives for 4 years. So he was in the Florida House of Representatives for 4 years, and then he was in the U.S. House of Representatives for the next 6 years. So Byron Donalds has got experience as a politician. But again, the reason that I didn't one of many reasons that I personally did not support Byron Donalds was because he was not specifically involved with all of the changes that were effectuated down here in Florida to move us forward. Now, I'm willing to give him a chance. Hopefully, Donalds will continue on with what DeSantis has done, and he doesn't roll back any of the positive things that have happened. We'll go ahead and see. Now, we also need to give you an update on Debbie Washing Machine Schultz. A white Jewish Democrat has won in a newly constructed district that is primarily black. Now, the black residents of this district wanted Debbie Washing Machine Schultz to sit this one out because they said that she was essentially pushing out a black candidate. And, you know, Democrats always make the argument about redistricting because they want to redistrict supposedly to give black representation. But then as soon as they have a opportunity for black representation, they put Debbie Washing Machine Schultz in there. Now, Debbie Washing Machine Schultz is part of the most evil and despicable aspects of the Florida deep state political elite. And she was running against, what's his name from 2 Live Crew? Somebody in the chat will know who I'm talking about. But anyways, she was first elected to Congress back in 2004. She has been in Congress for 22 years, and she has jumped districts on a number of different occasions. She ran in an area that was represented by Sheila Cherfilus McCormick. If you'll remember, Sheila Cherfilus McCormick was the naturalized American citizen. I believe she came from like Haiti or something like that. But she is in trouble right now for COVID money fraud. And she was forced to resign from her seat. And then she said, well, I'm just going to run anyways. And I think she got like 6% of the vote or something like that. Black Democrats were not happy about Debbie Washing Machine Schultz. Of course, she has name recognition, and I'm sure that the Florida Democrat Party said, we're going to go ahead and support her because everybody knows who Debbie Washing Machine Schultz is. So, looking for anybody who knows the name of the guy from 2 Live Crew that was running against her. I was kind of hoping he was going to win. Luke I think it might be Luke. Yes. Anyways, so Elijah Manley was a 27-year-old black Democrat and progressive organizer who ran against her. He said, I think for sure it was a bad move by the congressman to run in this district. It was selfish, all about her career, and not about the community. She failed to do any meaningful dialogue with the community before announcing her run, and it comes off as a hostile takeover of the district. I mean, so many people she ignored and didn't have conversations with, from the Florida Legislative Black Caucus and the chair of that caucus, as well as the black elected officials that were living there. And let's go ahead and take a look at the results as they came in. Just waiting for this to populate. What were the numbers? Okay, well, they don't give us the numbers. But if you have any confusion about who Debbie Washing Machine Schultz is, she was the one who hired the Pakistani IT guys, the Awan brothers, years ago. They were paid over $4 million, and there's supposed to be a pair of brothers, but there's only evidence that one of them ever existed. The other one was likely a construct made by the first one, the actual only Awan brother, Imran Awan. He made over $4 million with this family IT business. And of course, he was able to get into both Democrats and Republicans. Likely there was espionage that took place. The cover-up was done because it was going to reflect badly on Debbie Washing Machine Schultz and, of course, anyone in Congress that had this guy in their accounts. He was accessing congressmen and senators' accounts from off-site. I should probably do a baseless conspiracies on that one as well, because it's a fascinating story. Anyways, when it turned out that he was going to get charged, or they were at least looking at him, he ended up fleeing the country, or attempting to flee the country. And then they just let him flee the country anyways, because they wanted to cover the whole thing up. When he was arrested at the airport, he was carrying $12,000 in cash. Before he left, or attempted to leave, he sent $300,000 to Pakistan. His wife also had $12,000 cash on her when they were trying to leave the country. So, okay, AOTF. What am I looking at there? I know that this is like some ASCII image, but I can't tell what is. I mean, it kind of looks like a dog, maybe like a Doberman opening its mouth, getting ready to bite somebody. If you want to give me any clarification on what that's supposed to be, I'm down. Maybe there is something in there that I'm missing or need a little bit more time. Anyways, Debbie Washing Machine Schultz Tilder gave Pakistani IT guys access to the keys to the kingdom. There was likely espionage that took place. Nothing happened to them, and the investigation was a total washout. So, wait, does that say DJT? No, that's not what it says. His name makes it tab over. Why is it weird on your end? Strange. Was a man. Okay, I don't know what anybody's talking about. So Debbie Washing Machine Schultz may get beat by a Republican candidate in November. We'll go ahead and see. Also, a big loser, Corey Mills lost his primary election down here in Florida's 7th congressional district. That was not surprising. Corey Mills was the lone vote that stopped Ilhan Omar from being investigated or expelled from Congress because it's obvious she married her brother. Corey Mills had his own ethics investigation that he was trying to avoid, so he made a deal with the devil. And, of course, he is also currently under investigation by the DOJ. He was beaten by Ryan Elijah. I don't believe Ryan Elijah is a politician. He was a former news anchor or something like that. But the federal probe into Corey Mills is looking into his finances. I believe that Corey Mills, this is theoretical, don't sue me. I believe this may have something to do with improper spending, also being an arms dealer and sitting on committees, which allowed him to make money off of those things. But the Department of Justice is conducting that criminal investigation. There are multiple sources who have come forward. Corey Mills has also said that the investigation isn't real, but he has refused to get a letter from the DOJ exonerating him of any type of an investigation, just like Anna Paulina Luna recently did when somebody claimed that she was under investigation for insider trading. Fake news wasn't happening. But the FBI has reached out to and contacted multiple people in the course of their investigation into Corey Mills. Now, of course, Nancy Mace did a victory lap. Remember, she is a podcaster now, so she went and got a bunch of tattoos. She's totally based now, and she's doing her show on YouTube. Of course, also posting thirst traps on Instagram. Corey Mills, accused of a number of things outside of the financial issues. If you'll remember, we covered it here on the channel. He's also accused of beating a number of women and then telling them to lie about it. He's also accused of cyber stalking. His former beauty queen ex-girlfriend also made the claim that he attempted to sexually extort her with videos of them doing the deed. She ended up getting a restraining order against him. He's also accused of stolen valor, lying about his military service, and then ultimately profiting off of his seat in Congress. Now, of course, he doesn't make any admissions of any of these things. Even the restraining order, and the things that are on the record in the court, he blatantly lies and says that it's not real and it's not happening. I mean, the behavior of Corey Mills seems to be just astronomically dumb. He is either one of the stupidest people in Congress, or he is such a narcissist that he believed he was going to be able to overcome all of this. Now, here he is being approached by News Nation.
Congressman Mills, have you? I'm Joe with News Nation. Have you heard anything about potential expulsion vote for yourself and other people talking about it?
Well, not to mention the fact that I don't even fall into the category of swallowing in solids. One, I'm not married, so there's one thing.
He was married. He also got married to somebody in a mosque, and the imam that married him just happened to be connected to 9/11. I don't know. It's not a good look. But anyways, he just goes through and does a song and dance and totally denies that any of this stuff is happening. I think that he is going to be the 7th district is going to be a lot better off with Ryan as the man. So he was also alleged by Nancy Mace to have done all of these things. She was the one who was trying to get him expelled. And again, she may have been successful. And we may have also been successful at getting Ilhan Omar expelled. But Corey Mills made that deal with the Democrats to essentially save himself. I'm glad that all of this is comfortable for people to talk about now, because I had some people in the chat who were in Corey Mills's district who were very upset with me for talking about this stuff previously. And I want to go on the record and say that I think it is not healthy to have a personal you should not have a relationship with your congressman in that way. Like you should look at them, in my opinion, frankly, as an adversary, not necessarily the enemy. But these people are supposed to be working for us. And I think that at this point, it should be obvious to everybody that oftentimes our congressmen do not work for us. There are some that are better than others, but many of them are co-opted. Many of them have interests which rival ours. And so we need to hold their feet to the fire. And when things like this come up, it's not, in my opinion, proper to just sweep it under the rug. We need to make sure that these things are talked about, that people understand. And because of people like us having these conversations and making sure that these things were talked about, the people of CD7 definitely made their decision up. That's right. They are our employees, and many of them act as if they are our betters. They're not our bosses. We elect them, theoretically, even though plenty of elections are fake and gay. But we need to hold them accountable. And so we need to have honest conversations about them and their character, and many of them have really unsuitable characters. Now, again, Ryan Elijah, he is totally brand new. So I'm willing to give him a clean slate. We'll see what happens. But I tend to believe that he will be elected in November. Now, Donald Trump also tweeted about this. Or posted about this. He said, "I told Congressman Corey Mills of Florida, a friend of mine, to get out of the race, but he wouldn't listen. He thought he could win, so who could blame him? We now have a great candidate, Ryan Elijah, running in his place. Ryan stands for everything MAGA and is respected by all. He has my complete and total endorsement." And we have somebody here saying that he has taken no money for speaking engagements from Islamic interests. I don't know if he's taken any money from AIPAC, but if he has, then obviously that's going to come out really quickly because people are going to be talking about that. I just can't believe Trump calls Corey Mills a friend. Well, you know, this is typical for President Trump. I mean, even people that we know he is adversarial with, he will say that. Think about this. Trump did not endorse Corey Mills, and I'm sure that chapped Corey Mills' ass. For him to now come out and say, "I told Corey Mills to drop out. He's a great friend. I told him to drop out." President Trump just has a way of approaching and speaking to people. And even though it's not the way that many of us would do it, there is a strategy to all of it. So don't take what President Trump says entirely literally when you're looking at the sum total of his statements. There are obviously facts, figures, messaging that he's trying to get out, but it's not always the way that you think that it might be. I think that this was a swipe at Corey Mills, to be frank, because he says, "I told Corey Mills to get out to save some face. My good friend Corey Mills, I told him he shouldn't run." I'm sure the conversation was not that kind. Yeah, and he says it about everybody, even if we know that he doesn't get along with that person. Anyways, Ryan Elijah says, "I am humbled to have the endorsement of President Trump. This is an exciting time as we enter the next phase of this campaign to serve the people of this district. I will not let them down. Thank you, President Trump, for your support." So good luck to you. All right. Now, here is an interesting one. There was a special election in Pennsylvania, and this was a seat that Republicans have held for the last 30 years. Now, even more interesting is that this seat is in Butler County, which is, of course, the place that President Trump won by 18 points in the last election, and where the unsuccessful assassination attempt against him was committed. So Democrat Brandon Dukes has flipped this red seat that is in the 12th legislative district in the special election that was held yesterday. Now, Scott Timko, the Republican that had previously held this seat, he lost by a very slim margin, only 88 votes. That could easily have been from illegal votes because we know Pennsylvania has all kinds of problems. But according to the unofficial county returns, Dukes received 8,434 votes, and Timko received 8,346 votes, and there were 35 write-ins. All precincts are allegedly reporting. Now, because it's a special election, there was only 31.9% turnout, so 16,825 ballots amongst 52,745 registered voters. I would really like to take a closer look at the specifics of this particular election, because it may turn out that the election results are not real. Now, this is yet to be certified. It may have been certified by now. There were allegedly 73 provisional ballots that were outstanding, which could change the name of the game very, very, very neatly. But it is a brutal result for Pennsylvania Republicans if this is truly how people voted. This will be the first time a Democrat has held this seat since the late 1990s. And the district covers parts of southwestern Butler County, Cranberry Township, Adams Township, Jackson Township. I don't know any of these places, but just suffice to say it's in Butler County. And it's being reported as a major loss for the Republicans. I find it difficult to believe that the results are real. So we'll go ahead and leave it at that. I need to say thank you to Family Man. You, sir, are a scholar and a gentleman. Thank you for gifting those Rumble memberships to the people over there on Rumble. I really do appreciate it. And congratulations to those of you who received them. Now, also, a big loser in Florida, another one, is Alexander Vindman, the architect of the hoax Ukraine impeachment. He got absolutely trumped by a lunatic DSA socialist who I am certain is not going to win in November. But Angie Nixon got 115,438 more votes than retired Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, who, of course, was the National Security Council official who became that star witness in 2019 during the circus that was the Ukraine impeachment. He also spent a lot more money than she did. So Angie is a state representative. She is a part of the Democrat Socialists of America. Vindman was heavily favored by the establishment Democrats, and he raised a lot more money. He pulled in more than $16 million and spent more than $16 million. And Angie Nixon raised less than $1 million. She only spent like $770,000 or something like that. Okay, E.H. Kyle says, Zach, you need to talk to CanCon. Video came out on that ICE agent was not attacked with a shovel. They were inside the house. He shot through a closed door. Okay, well, as I always say, I am happy to be debunked on anything if there is information that I have yet to receive. I'll reach out to CanCon. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate that. So think about this. Vindman outspent her by like 12 to 15 times, something like that. And little Angie Nixon, who is basically known for being a loudmouth socialist, she spent less than $1 million and she beat him. Now, when the votes were counted, he, of course, claims he is a whistleblower. Don't forget, he also did not get a pardon by Joe Biden or the auto pen. And Nixon beat him about 10%. So let me show you guys a clip here, and you will probably remember Angie Nixon because I actually showed this clip previously. Let's see what this news... Ashley Moody is who the Republican candidate is in this district, and I'm pretty sure Ashley Moody is going to win.
Vindman in the Democratic primary for the United States Senate in Florida. This one is a monster of an upset. Vindman raised a ton of money, came into this with a ton of national name recognition, national support in this race. And the hope of Democrats that he could make this, we're going to do news now here in a second, that he could make this a fight, put Florida on the map nationally. Instead, Angie Nixon from the left has defeated him handily.
Defeated him handily. So Alexander Vindman is even more depressed today than likely he was when he realized that he was not going to get a pardon. All right, now I just wanted to pull this up because we have the exact figures. So Vindman spent $16.2 million through July 29th. Nixon had spent nearly $710,000, and she still had about $250,000 in the bank, $264,000. I'm sorry, I apologize. Vindman was able to raise $16 million. He spent $9 million, and he still had $7.62 million in cash. So he's basically going to get a $7 million payday at the end of this, because there are creative ways that you can use the money that's left in your account. I don't think that he's going to be running for office again anytime soon. Likely, he's going to want to go ahead and put that towards a lawyer. So let me now show you Angie. Oh, wait, what happened to the clip of Miss Angie? Well, first of all, I want to show you President Trump. Oh, no, this is her. This is her. Okay, so she was the one on the floor of the Florida State Legislature during the redistricting fight, who had like a little kid's megaphone, and she wouldn't shut up, and she just kept screaming through that megaphone. It's insufferable, but we have to see it because this is what the Democrats of that district wanted.
I will not allow you to destroy our democracy. That is a violation of the Constitution.
It ain't though, Angie. It is not a violation of the Constitution. It was absolutely and 100% above board. So Nixon is now going to be running against Ashley Moody. Ashley Moody, I think, is going to be just fine in that seat. Let's take a look at a clip from CNN where even they are a little bit uncomfortable speaking with Ms. Nixon.
And so I look forward, Ashley Moody, to taking you on and to whooping you in November, and you will be calling me your senator.
State Representative Angie Nixon, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
She was like, oh, no, she did not. She's a little bit too confident, I think. So President Trump, he immediately went to Truth Social and lambasted retired Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman. And he even suggested that Alexander Vindman should be prosecuted. I think he should. So here, President Trump shares this. Sleazebag Vindman loses tonight to a radical left lunatic. How cool is that?
He's running against one of the Vindman twins. Vindman, is that correct? The Vindman twins, these are the worst people. You got to win that race, Derek. They are the worst people. They reported a false conversation. They made up a story about a certain conversation that was false. And they act like they're hot stuff. They're not. All they have to do is look in the mirror and they'll realize. And look at this guy. He's like a movie star, right? Look at this guy. No, the brothers, they're twins. And I heard one is worse than the other. I think you're running against the worst one.
And that's not all he said. President Trump also shared this. Sleazebag Vindman loses tonight to a radical left lunatic, and he shared a grok-made picture of him. And, of course, everybody was lambasting Vindman on social media as well for spending so much money and having pretty much zero effect on the race itself. President Trump posted another post about Alexander Vindman, taking the opportunity to remind people that the call was perfect. He said the most gratifying loss last night was that of a real treasonous creep, Alexander Vindman. I also think President Trump throwing around the word treasonous is not merely an invective that is designed to be inflammatory, okay? Alexander Vindman, again, did not get a pardon. So there is any number of things that Vindman could be prosecuted for. And I think that his running for Senate was an effort to try to overcome that in some way. So Vindman lost to a radical left lunatic who can't speak or think properly, and who will go down to certain defeat at the hands of Ashley Moody, a truly fantastic senator from the great state of Florida. Vindman, if you remember, was the one who lied about my perfect call with President Zelensky of Ukraine, only to find out that the conversation was routinely recorded and proved that I was 100% in the right, completely innocent. It was indeed a perfect call, and the Democrats' fake impeachment effort failed massively. Vindman should be prosecuted for what he did, President Donald J. Trump. So now that Vindman is not running as a candidate, the chances for that prosecution look more likely than they did yesterday. Principled Enigma says that scrambled post indeed was DJT. I copied and pasted it into a text box and squeezed it till it made sense. Okay, thank you very much. All right, now also, we were speaking about the Democratic Socialists of America yesterday, and I saw this come across the wire. One of the other co-chairs of the DNC, this creep right here with the greasy hair and the skinny little mustache, kind of looks like a young Salvador Dali without the charm. He apparently lives in New York City in a $1.5 million home that his parents brought for him. It's always easy for these rich Nepo babies to be communists because they've never had to work for anything in their life. So this man is Gustavo Gordillo, and he appeared on Fox News several weeks ago and basically showed his ignorance. But now we're being able to take a closer look at who he is, why it is that he hates wealthy people so much. He is one of them. Why he loves Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, another champagne socialist. This man, a co-chair of the Democratic Socialists of America, and he lives in a $1.5 million home that he didn't buy, that he didn't work for, that his mommy and daddy bought for him. Here he is standing at an event in New York City in front of a sign that says tax the rich. Of course, not him, because he's a Nepo baby. He doesn't want to be taxed to death. That would be for you, the plebs. The proletariat, the proletariat. He is a bourgeois asshole. Anyways, this millionaire parents bought him a $1.5 million home. He lives there and works there. He's 38 years old. He's co-chair of the New York City chapter of the DSA, and his anti-capitalist communist agenda is so successful because he doesn't have to work for anything. I think anybody here would be extremely grateful if their parents purchased them a $1.5 million home. You might actually appreciate it. I'd actually like to take a look and see. Yes, hang on. Let's watch a clip of who this moron actually is.
And one of the most basic things is Article 1. In our Constitution. Are you in favor of abolishing Article 1 of the Constitution?
No. We support a democratic route to transformative change in the United States. We think that we need to put the working class before the billionaire class.
So you don't want to abolish the Senate, the United States Senate, because that's what Article 1 is.
The United States Senate is an undemocratic institution. It gives more representation to people in smaller states than to the 30 million people in California.
Now, it's interesting because abolishing the Senate is actually one of the key platforms of the Democratic Socialists of America. We've talked about all this. This guy is a certified moron. So I just pray to God every day that these commies do not take power. All right. Now, the Trump DOJ has just announced through Harmeet Dillon that they are going to be deploying a record number of federal election monitors to polling places nationwide for the midterms. This is more than have ever been deployed before. Now, you might hear the 1,000 figure and you might say, oh, that's cool. We're getting more than normal. I think they need more than 1,000. Just personally, that's me. I think the fraud is so outrageous and it's going on in so many different ways all over the country. We would really, really do well. It would behoove us to have more than 1,000 federal monitors, but I will take a win where I can get it. So Dylan spoke with Bloomberg, and she said that they will be deploying probably a historic number of monitors for a Republican administration. The Civil Rights Division also has long sent monitors to ensure compliance with federal voting laws, but the scale of these monitors in this second term is a sharp escalation from what we've ever seen before. We just did it in the primary. We will do it to the tune of approximately 1,000 election monitors in the November election. That is something the DOJ does. What they'll do is observe whether or not elections are conducted fairly. They will look at language access issues, disability access issues, and places where there may be voter fraud issues. Now, those first items that they will allegedly be looking at, in my opinion, are truly just the cover for why they're going in. The fraud is what we really want to be paying attention to. In today's age, I don't think many people are being denied access because they're in a wheelchair. I don't think that there's any issues in Democrat-run areas where people can't speak the language and they're unable to vote as a result. But let's hear it from Harmeet Dillon.
We began our election security work almost as soon as I was sworn in last April. This is an ongoing duty and obligation. And by the way, it is no different than in Democrat administrations. In and out since the 1957, the United States Department of Justice Civil Rights Division has sent monitors to election hotspots, polling places, to increase voter confidence, to troubleshoot problems. And we are doing that now. We just did it in the primary. We're going to do it to the tune of approximately 1,000 election monitors in the November election. And this is just something that DOJ does.
Where
Nothing different about it. Well, we are still formulating our final list, but you know, the places where there may be language issues, the places where there may have been.
Probably every state that has refused to hand over their voter registration lists. That's just my armchair assessment here, but that's going to be the places that we want to look at. The places where likely they are attempting to cover up the fraud that is taking place.
Access of disability rights issues, places where there may be voter fraud issues that we've seen. We've had some prosecutions. I think you've seen some of those. There'll be some prosecutions in the pipeline of people who voted illegally, who should not have. And we see a problem, frankly, with some election officials refusing to clean up their voter rolls and knowingly allowing non-citizens, for example, to stay on the voter rolls. This is a federal crime.
Okay.
It began our...
And there you have it. That truly is the thrust of this effort. They are going to be watching for crimes to be committed in the election sphere. And of course, on Tuesday, the DOJ already had monitors on the ground for primaries in a number of key locations like Miami-Dade, where, of course, there's a lot of Democrats that run that place. Laramie County, Wyoming. I'm not as familiar with that. The department has already deployed more than 75 monitors across 5 states, over 200 polling locations this primary season. Dillon has said the department will consider jurisdictions with suspected fraud problems or officials who fail to maintain accurate voter rolls. We know exactly who those people are because right now they are suing the Department of Justice and the United States government to try to keep those voter rolls out of the hands of the people who could hold them accountable. Now, it was previously announced that the DOJ for their primaries was sending monitors to 15 jurisdictions, which included Arizona, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Virginia during their primaries. Now, shortly after Michigan's primary, Harmeet Dillon made a as yet undisclosed trip back to Detroit, Michigan. And I have to believe that that trip was all about investigating crimes that took place during Michigan's primary election. And monitors were posted in Detroit, Lansing, East Lansing. East Lansing is basically, that's where MSU is. There's a lot of students, so opportunity for international students, people who are not citizens to vote. Lansing is the capital city of Michigan. Detroit is the hub of fraud in the entire state. Now, of course, during the Biden administration, they monitored in 2024, federal officials were assigned to 86 jurisdictions in 27 states, and nothing that I had ever heard of came from them. Principal Enigma says the Senate is what equalizes the power between states with varying populations, along with the Electoral College. It's part of what prevents mob rule. Now, speaking of election fraud and speaking of Michigan, Sheriff Dar Leaf of Berry County, Michigan, has, in my opinion, done more to address election fraud issues than any other sheriff I've ever seen. Of course, we had Sheriff Chad Bianco out in California. Nothing has come of that. There may be something that comes in the future, but Dar Leaf has been particularly targeted by the state government in Michigan because he was asking the right questions and he was putting the information out there. So last night, Dar Leaf spoke with a whistleblower who works for the Michigan Secretary of State, which, of course, is run by Jocelyn Benson, George Soros's chosen Secretary of State. And she's also running for governor. So he dropped a bombshell that should make everybody nervous, especially the people in Michigan who are breaking the laws. This is a quick summary, and then we'll watch the video. So he basically had this whistleblower come forward and explain to him how non-citizens are automatically getting registered to vote and how difficult it is to detect those illegals once they get on the voter rolls. So this confidential informant, and this is why this is big, they work for the Secretary of State's office in Michigan. And this whistleblower said non-citizens are automatically registered to vote when they change their address. The customer and automotive record system is programmed to congratulate and inform those non-citizens that they have been registered to vote. Every instance of that happening is itself a federal crime. When the informant showed proof, because it's not just somebody talking, they have documentary proof and they showed it to a supervisor. The supervisor claimed the county clerk would then change and remove the non-citizens. Well, of course, the county clerks are probably thinking that the Secretary of State is going to fix it. But of course, the Secretary of State's not going to fix it. Dar Leaf then stated that this is absolutely not correct. The clerks receive access to the qualified voter file only after the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, has already registered that person, and the qualified voter file does not flag citizenship status. It makes no differentiation between a person on the voter rolls if they are a citizen or not. They're just a name with a figure on this database, and they are automatically sent out ballots. Now, Leaf also says his office has already referred this matter to the U.S. Department of Justice for investigation, possibly under conspiracy to violate 18 U.S.C. 611, which is the unlawful voting by non-citizens. And by placing non-citizens on the voter rolls and into the jury pools, anyone who has touched this system and was aware of it, they have automatically broken that law. He's also asking the Michigan legislature to act immediately to stop the practice, and he encourages anyone with additional evidence to contact his office or their local sheriff. And he said, you know, this is wrong. It's time to act. So this was the video we're now going to watch of Dar Leaf explaining the whistleblower's testimony and revealing just how easy it is in the state of Michigan to get yourself on the voter rolls and vote if you are an illegal alien. Now, I have less confidence in the Michigan legislature doing anything about this than I do with the Department of Justice doing anything about it, because as we all know, Harmeet Dillon has already specifically put Jocelyn Benson on blast, letting her and everybody else in the state of Michigan know that if you allow illegal aliens to vote, we will be coming for you. I think that there are likely tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of examples of this taking place in the state of Michigan, and this could be a big one.
It's a beautiful Tuesday morning here in Berry County, Michigan. I'm Sheriff Dar Leaf. An employee of the Michigan Secretary of State's office reported to me that non-citizens are automatically registered to vote when they change their address. The confidential informant provided evidence that the customer and automotive record system is programmed to congratulate and inform non-citizens that they are registered to vote. When the confidential informant provided proof to her supervisor that non-citizens are automatically registered to vote, the supervisor stated that the county clerk would identify the non-citizenship status. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, this is not true. The county clerk has given access to the qualified voter roll after the Secretary of State registers a person to vote. The qualified voter roll does not designate a citizenship status. Once a person is registered to vote, they have the ability to receive a mail-in ballot or vote at the poll with their ID card. The polls do not verify citizenship status. My office has referred this matter for investigation to the United States Department of Justice of conspiracy to violate 18 U.S.C. 611 and place non-citizens on the qualified voter roll and in the jury pool. Additionally, I am asking the Michigan legislature to use its resources to remedy the illegal voter registration and placement in the jury pool immediately. My office encourages witnesses with additional evidence of non-citizens receiving automatic voter registration to report this evidence to my office or to your local sheriff. You know this is wrong. It's time to act. Have a good day.
All right. So I am really hoping that this is going to result in something. Darleaf has been a dog with a bone for quite some time. And this is the moment to act. Now, I saw somebody in the chat say they do this because nothing ever happens. And you're absolutely right. Up until this point, nothing has happened. It doesn't mean that it's not going to happen going forward. Now, let's go from Michigan to California, another state where we know that there is sufficient fraud to take action. Now, this is a story I had not heard anything about. And it was given to me by Alex, who may or may not be in the chat. Alex, thank you very much for telling us about this. But approximately 1 week ago, it was announced only locally. There was nothing that I could find on a national level. There was nothing I could find even at the state level talking about this. But FBI agents are right now assessing alleged fraudulent ballots and suspicious activity in the election that was just held in Shasta County. Now, this is as a result of Clint Curtis, the current Shasta County Registrar of Voters, having made a call to the FBI. He asked them to come in and assess what he believed to be suspicious ballots. He said that about a dozen people observed these suspicious ballots while processing them for the June 2nd primary election, along with video evidence that Clint had showing suspicious activity by the employees. Now, citizens of Shasta County have filed affidavits detailing what they saw regarding the ballots. 4 FBI agents, 2 from Los Angeles and 2 from Sacramento, have come into Shasta County, and they've been interviewing these citizens of Shasta County during this past week. Some of the citizens said that the ballot paper had a different texture. It was a different thickness. The weight was off. And Clint said the same thing. Other people indicated that the color of the ink was wrong on the ballots as well. Now, there are shades of pink and purple at the top of the ballot that you can see that will clue you in as to whether or not this is a correct ballot. Other people expressed concerns about how perfectly the boxes were filled in. It looked like a computer had printed them off. And then another citizen tried to replicate the precision of the filled-in boxes using 3 different pen brands and 3 different types of pens, but they could never achieve the level of precision. So it appeared that these ballots were printed off and then inserted. In another instance, someone saw approximately 10 ballots in sequential order that were all filled out and looked exactly alike. And then when the 1% manual vote count was conducted, the fraudulent-looking ballots became even more evident when they were compared against ballots that were known to be good. So the ballots from this June primary are currently stored in a locked room with an extra padlock. The padlock keys have been destroyed to prevent tampering with the ballots, and the FBI would need a warrant to remove the ballots from the elections office. Now, Clint Curtis, the Registrar of Voters, told the Shasta Unfiltered that if some of the ballots are fraudulent, the FBI would have methods to test the paper, that they're printed on to determine their origin, as well as to check the ink and see what they came from, what type of printer. Curtis is also expecting the Department of Homeland Security from Washington, D.C. to look into the matter because it was a federal election. So let's talk about the video evidence. Thanks to the video cameras that Curtis installed in the elections office, much to the chagrin of the local politicians and the employees, footage exists showing this highly suspicious activity by a number of employees in the elections office. What's also interesting is that these employees that Curtis saw doing suspicious activity, they went to the local Shasta County board and they made claims of improper behavior against Curtis, and the board censured Curtis. He lost his race, and maybe because of fake ballots, but he's not going to be the Register of Voters very much longer. Until January is when the new person takes over. But they basically came after him and tried to get him kicked out before he could bring any of this evidence. So the employees allegedly used a credit card instead of their badge to access certain rooms in the elections office, which included the ballot storage room and the room where the election balancing was being conducted. One of the employees entered the ballot room. Another one stood at the door as a lookout. And then when someone unexpectedly came out of the elevator, the two employees began other activities to divert attention away from the ballot room. And then employees, when they use their badge to enter a room, there's obviously a log of the entry that's created, which then links that person to the entry. If a credit card is used, there's no record of who entered the room. You only have the log that somebody came into the room. So they're clearly trying to cover something up. Another employee has allegedly been falsifying numbers on the over-the-counter ballot report on a number of occasions. As an example, the employee would indicate that 6 ballots were issued when, in fact, there was actually a dozen ballots that went out. Also, 9 or 10 ballots were sent out on a Saturday when nobody was in the office. How did that happen? An employee also entered a room and concealed needed information from the balancing team. So last Tuesday, Clint was censured in that 3-1 vote by the Board of Supervisors after these allegations of supposed verbal threats against some of these permanent employees who were engaging in this behavior in the elections office came forward. Now, they were actually loyal to the former assistant register of voters, a woman by the name of Joanna Franskut. The allegations were found to be substantiated by internal and external investigations. However, not all of the employees in the office were interviewed. There was an eyewitness account, and it was submitted in an affidavit under penalty of perjury that refuted the allegations. That was actually totally ignored by the investigators. And Curtis has repeatedly stated that certain entrenched employees have created this hostile work environment for him and some of the newer employees. He plans to file a whistleblower suit, and he says that he will sue the county as well as the individual people who created this hostile environment. And from the beginning, the employees had threatened to quit if Curtis was appointed to the position, but instead of quitting, they stayed on in order to sabotage him. And that's according to Curtis. Now, Curtis also spoke to the Shasta Unfiltered, and he said that he has worked and been all over the country and overseas. I have never seen such crazy, rabid people as I have here in Shasta County. It is hard to believe that people could live with themselves doing that. On the subject of County Counsel Joseph Lamore, he's the county lawyer, Curtis stated that Lamore had asked him to perjure himself in the Measure B court case about the ability to implement Measure B for the election. I'm not familiar with this, but obviously the county lawyer asking the registrar of elections to perjure himself is a big problem. Curtis said that it would be possible to do so, and that he had been working to expand the number of precincts and election workers needed. Curtis had notified the court of Lamore's unethical behavior, and he filed another California Bar Association complaint against him, stating, in New York, if you tried to pull that, you'd be gone. Curtis also recently applied for a position in Kern County, but was not interviewed, possibly due to poor reviews from the Board of Supervisors. And Curtis questions whether ballots were inserted in 2024, where the election to select supervisors Matt Plummer and Alan Long, who have both opposed appointing Curtis to the position from day one. Curtis hopes the FBI or the DHS will seize the 2024 ballots before they are destroyed next month. Now, I've actually been told that that has happened. that the FBI has seized these ballots, and this investigation has progressed since this article was written. When he was asked to estimate the number of fraudulent ballots, Curtis says there are probably thousands. The problem with California's voter rolls is that the Secretary of State controls them, and suspicious registrations remain on the polls. For example, people who moved away decades ago are somehow still on those rolls. Using P.O. boxes as residential addresses is obviously illegal. However, the state will not remove them even when Curtis or his staff requests it. These problems are not unique to Shasta County. This is a problem that happens all across California and all across the country, but it's especially bad in California. Georgia, another state which has a terrible system, using voting machines that don't produce a hard copy paper ballot, so the vote has no way to be verified, and the person who cast the vote has no way to make sure that their vote went through properly. So Curtis says the system he created for Shasta County would prevent the machine from vote flipping because anyone can access the camera footage to count the votes themselves, and if the machine count was found to be off, the company that made the tabulating machine would go out of business. Now, let's talk a little bit about that FBI investigation. This was roughly at about the same time. This article does not go into as much depth. However, they do hit on the fact that the claims made against Curtis are unfounded and that there is no physical evidence, but that Curtis does have the physical evidence. And, of course, we have these physical ballots. So the request for federal intervention is obviously coming at a sensitive time, not only for California because they're in the midst of an election, but for the entire country because everybody is concerned about the security of our elections. And California obviously does not want to have the FBI come in and show that they are doing something unlawful. However, the FBI is likely examining the following things. Clearly, the claim that Curtis has made about these ballot irregularities, that should be a fairly easy one to prove. The authenticity of the ballots that were used in June, whether or not any federal election-related crimes have occurred based upon the affidavits filed by citizens and the information given by Curtis. It appears that there have. And whether or not Curtis's actions violated state election protection laws, that is clearly something that the people who want Curtis out want the FBI to investigate. So there is a bit of a battle going on in Shasta County. Now, there is one more piece of information, and it is the presence of Tina Peters. So Tina Peters has been brought in by Clint Curtis to act as a consultant in Shasta County during the investigation. Now, this article was updated on the 16th, so 3 days ago. So, of course, former Mesa County clerk and recorder Tina Peters is being brought in as a consultant to investigate the likely presence of election fraud. She will be there working right alongside Curtis, his staff, and the FBI. Now, there is an arrangement to be made here because there is an existing member of the staff that is on sick leave, and that sick leave ends on September 4th. So, once that sick leave expires on September 4th, Clint says, I can utilize that salary to bring Tina on board. She'll be a consultant. That will insulate her from being blamed for anything because she won't have access to the system. But the consulting role would add Tina Peters' hands-on experience with the election systems to Shasta County's office for the remaining months of Clint's terms. Under previous administrations, public observation was severely limited. Only a few TV screens were available, and observers had to stand upstairs looking at distant images of employees in the Agilis machine area, which is where the high-speed ballot sorting machine is. In November of 2024, people had appeared so small on the screen that meaningful observation was essentially impossible. But Curtis has clearly transformed the closed system into a centralized process with extensive transparent video recording of ballots so that you can see them as they enter the tabulator, as they're being counted. This gives people who do want to observe the opportunity to do so. Now, everybody knows Tina Peters' experience, so we're not going to go ahead and talk about that. But the new practices that Clint has been putting into place, including live streaming and recording of all of this ballot counting, it has also created the opportunity for evidence to be collected. Now, The FBI coming in, there has been no public comment by the FBI. But again, Clint was interviewed on a local radio station yesterday or the day before, and he confirmed that the FBI is definitely investigating. As we know, they were there doing interviews. I don't know about the presence of the Department of Homeland Security. However, this should be something that DHS should do as well. So I think that we've got two major election stories that are just beginning to break, both in Michigan and in California, two of the worst offenders for election fraud around the country. So we will obviously be following up on these as we get more information. All right. Now, we have an update here from President Trump as well. And this is the third major breaking story as it relates to the United States election. Now, President Trump had the United States Census Bureau do an analysis of their records, and they found in the small sample size they looked at, more than 24,000 non-citizens who voted in the 2020 election. And they still have 32 million records yet to analyze. And as a result of that, they clearly believe that they are going to find more election-related crimes. So President Trump dropped this on Truth Social last night, showing that the U.S. Census Bureau has begun cross-checking 2020 voter records against citizenship data. And the early results are clearly showing what we've been saying all along. This post says the Census Bureau has begun checking the voter records from 2020 against their citizenship records. On the first 128 million voters, the Census Bureau has proved that over 24,000 non-citizens voted illegally. The Census Bureau is going to analyze the next 32 million voters, and this number will explode. I won the election. We must pass the Save America Act. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, according to the Census Bureau, the preliminary analysis of the 2020 election shows there were 160 million ballots cast. There were 128 million voter records that were linked to U.S. citizens. That means 24,000 voter records were linked to non-citizens. And there are still 32 million records left yet to cross-check. And we have no idea what portion of the country those 32 million records are from. So depending on Michigan, California, other heavily Democrat-run states, then it could be a huge number. But that 24,000 confirmed non-citizens, that is a huge number in and of itself. The Census Bureau's own material makes it clear that this number is 100% accurate. This is not a clerical error. There is no mistaken registrations. You have non-citizens who have been given the right to vote illegally in our country. And there is absolute proof in these government databases that these non-citizens have cast ballots. This is, again, only one election, and most likely one of the most consequential elections, if not the most consequential election of the modern era. So you have in these records where they are cross-checking, no U.S. birth record for these 24,000 that are found, no record of becoming a U.S. citizen, no U.S. passport, no government citizenship record ever recorded, no other proof of citizenship in any respect. And in addition to that, you have, out of these 24,000, these people have green card non-citizen records, a visa issued to a non-citizen, a foreign student non-citizen record, an enforcement non-citizen record, a DACA non-citizen approval, a non-citizen code held by an agency, or a taxpayer ID that was issued to a non-citizen. So essentially, you have numerous cross-checks that have been done to prove that these 24,000 people or more are absolutely, unequivocally, in no way citizens of the United States, and each and every one of them broke the law and voted in a federal election. I can seriously see this going even wider. President Trump is correct. I think with these 32 million additional votes that have yet to be cross-checked, we are going to find that there are numerous additional instances of this. Zero evidence of citizenship, multiple federal records confirming non-citizenship status, every single one of them illegal. So President Trump shares this. Where are the non-citizen voters born? Well, would you look at that? The vast majority of them are from Mexico. You've got some that are from Canada and the Philippines and Jamaica, Germany, the United Kingdom, Cuba, Vietnam, Haiti, and South Korea. But yeah, this is actually the country of birth was unfortunately unavailable for approximately 7,000 voters. So we've got 7,000 people that we can look at out of those 24,000 and say they're not citizens, but we don't even know what country they're from. These are the top 10 countries, and these are obviously not all of them. You've got the rest of them that make up the bulk of that. These are people coming from all around the country. It's not a myth. It's not a fake news. It's not misinformation. We have documentary evidence right now, 100% proof that non-citizens are voting in U.S. elections, and every single time this happens, it is absolutely a federal crime. Lauren, my very good friend, Lauren from Car Coach Reports, thank you so much for the $100 rant over on Rumble. You guys, make sure that you are following Lauren, the Car Coach, on YouTube, on Rumble, on X. She is a great follow. You guys know I'm a car guy, so I check in with her every single day. She's always got interesting stories, and anytime she finds something that she thinks would be great for the channel, she sends it over here. I really appreciate you, Lauren. Thank you very, very much for that generous donation. You are a true friend. Also, I Will Survive Always just says their name. Thank you, I Will Survive Always, and I hope that that remains true after today. Okay, yes, not shocking. Unfortunately, David, not shocking at all. But we need to obviously do something about it. All right. Now, moving on to our next piece. We have, what is this? A non-citizen, a Chinese national who was allegedly casting a fraudulent ballot in 2024. He voted in the presidential election, and he did it by impersonating a lawful permanent resident. And then he reported the victim to federal authorities for voting illegally. This is a real scumbag maneuver here. A 33-year-old resident from Andover who was allegedly impersonating the victim and his wife in fraudulent immigration filings resulted in the confiscation of their green cards and their placement in removal proceedings. So the person who did this he set up another immigrant and his wife to try to get them kicked out of the country. So this is a Chinese national in Andover, Mass. He was arrested today for submitting a fraudulent voter registration and a ballot in the 2024 presidential election in the name of another Chinese national. That defendant also allegedly submitted 2 fraudulent immigration forms on behalf of the victim, who is, of course, a Chinese national, and his wife. That resulted in them getting their green cards confiscated and causing them to be removed. This man's name is Yupeng Sung. He's 33. He was charged with 1 count of fraudulent voter registration and 1 count of fraudulent voting. Sun is going to appear in federal court in Boston today. That's already happened. But according to court filings on October 10th, 2024, Sun allegedly submitted an online voter registration through the Secretary of the Commonwealth's website, impersonating another Chinese national residing in Massachusetts who had legal permanent resident status. It just goes to show you how easy it is to get away with this stuff because everything is done online nowadays. So, Sun allegedly continued to impersonate other Chinese nationals and submitted an early voting ballot at Malden Hall for the 2024 presidential election. After registering to vote and voting, Sun allegedly submitted several anonymous tips in April and May of this year to Homeland Security Investigations and USCIS. He stated that the victim illegally voted in the 2024 U.S. presidential election, and he noted that he is not a U.S. citizen, but a permanent resident. We can actually see their rat bastard report right here. Anonymous report. The subject illegally voted in the 2024 presidential election. He is not a U.S. citizen, but a permanent resident. He registered to vote via a Massachusetts government website and voted in person at Malden City Hall. His name is redacted. his social security number. He even knew his social security number, his voter registration address. His voting record is contained in the government system of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Anonymous doesn't know his current address. It's also further alleged that Sun impersonated the same Chinese national and his Chinese national wife in fraudulent forms submitted to USCIS in April of 24, requesting to abandon their lawful permanent resident status. When the couple returned from an international trip in June of 2024, they were subjected to secondary inspection at Logan Airport in Boston, had their green cards confiscated, and were placed into removal proceedings, allegedly as a result of Sun's submission of fraudulent forms. The charges of fraudulent registration and fraudulent voting each provide a sentence of up to 5 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and a fine of $250,000. The subject is subject to deportation upon completion of any sentence, and sentences are imposed by a federal district judge. So what a piece of shit, you guys. What a scumbag. I mean, like, there are some dirty dogs out there, but this guy is the dirtiest of them all. Wow. Let me see. All right, so we also have a story about arrest warrants being issued yesterday for 6 current and former members of the Metropolitan Police Department. This is in Washington, D.C. They were submitting overtime fraud. Now, the judge in the U.S. Superior Court for the District of Columbia signed arrest warrants for current and former MPD members. I'm going to say these names, and you may remember some of them. Peter Sheldon, Franz Fulcher, Thomas Kermenick, Bernadette Richardson, Dory Smith Clear, and Johnny Dyer. Now, these warrants will lead to the arrests on charges for their fraudulently claiming overtime and for hours not worked during the 2024 calendar year. Upon their arrests, all of them will be charged with first-degree fraud, first-degree theft, forgery, and uttering. According to the evidence, during the calendar year of 2024, multiple Metropolitan Police Department employees in the 5th District submitted false claims for overtime and regular tour duties for hours they did not work. Listen to how ballsy these people are. The evidence shows these employees manipulated official records, forged supervisory approvals, and or claimed compensation while they were engaged in secondary employment. They were working second jobs, and they were claiming overtime at the Metropolitan Police Department. The investigation relied on numerous independent data sources, including body-worn camera footage, radio and GPS records, cell site location data, cellular toll records, license plate reader data, annual leave records, travel records, email records, network data, access logs, personnel files, overtime documentation submitted through the timesheet manager application system. These people are effed. It's just not the same type of criminal atmosphere we used to live in, is it, guys? If they want to get you, they're going to get you. In today's age where everything is digital and your entire life is on your phone, you better be sure of the type of crimes you're going to be committing. And if you're a police officer working in Washington, D.C., my God, what kind of a moron are you? So the investigation identified several recurring methods they would use to unlawfully obtain overtime. They would claim overtime while physically being outside the District of Columbia, including during domestic and international travel. Again, is that balls? Is that hubris? Or is that sheer and utter stupidity? They would also claim overtime while they were on annual leave. That sort of thing is recorded. You're on official leave, and then you also say you were working overtime while you're on leave. They would also forge their supervisor's signatures to get the overtime hours paid, and they would use administrative positions to facilitate the fraudulent overtime processing and approvals. Now, Metropolitan Police Department, January 6th, at least 2 of those 6 D.C. police officers that I just mentioned to you, Peter Sheldon and Franz Fulcher, who were just charged for theft of over $440,000 from the United States taxpayers, were honored by Democrats in the January 6th Unselect Committee when this plaque was placed in the Capitol. There was a couple of other officers who also were charged with various things whose names are on this thing. So it just goes to show you the lack of moral fortitude that these people have. Now, my hat goes off to every honest cop out there. And I love it when I get to expose the dishonest cops. The dishonest cops give the good cops bad names. It puts a sour taste into the mouth of Americans. And these people, I am so glad they are getting exposed. Easy election reform. Cheat of fraud, web broadcast, quick trial guilty equals immediate hanging. That goes for any citizen aiding and helping them as well. Sir, I cannot argue with you on that one. So I'm glad to know that these dishonest police have just gotten their asses handed to them. All right, now, remember, James O'Keefe and Cam Higbee dressed as Muslims and went to Minneapolis and figured out that it's very easy to commit fraud there. Now, apparently, the Council on American Islamic Relations is calling for a criminal investigation into both of them for dressing up as Muslims and using fake Middle Eastern accents during this undercover sting. This is another reason why these people cannot be allowed to come to power. They have obviously committed no crimes. They exposed crimes. And Muslims, frankly, get really offended if you in any way poke fun at Islam. Of course, there have been numerous murders, beheadings, honor killings, bombings, genocide, all committed as a result of people poking fun at Islam. Anyways, this was an undercover journalistic investigation. And CARE, quite literally, is a supporter and funder of terror around the world, and they seek to impose Sharia law here in the United States. You'll probably remember last year, Governor Tex Abbott designated CARE as a foreign terrorist organization and a transnational criminal organization. The Muslim Brotherhood and CARE have long made their goals clear to forcibly impose Sharia law and establish Islam's mastership of the world. The actions taken by the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE to support terrorism across the globe and support and subvert our laws through violence, intimidation, and harassment are unacceptable. Governor Ron DeSantis this summer also announced his intent to designate CARE as a terrorist organization. And CARE, obviously, under Sharia law, would not allow for free speech. So, in a statement that CARE made, using fake Muslim identities, accents, and religious stereotypes as part of a political stunt is not a harmless prank or political stunt. He calls it a political stunt and then says it's not a political stunt. Big brain on Jay. Well, when individuals allegedly impersonate real voters and potentially violate Minnesota election law while portraying Muslims as deceptive or fraudulent, the public deserves accountability and a serious investigation. If someone believes Minnesota's voting laws are vulnerable, there are ways to raise those concerns. Falsely impersonating a real voter and using anti-Muslim stereotypes, these are real Muslim stereotypes. They're not anti-Muslim stereotypes. I mean, these things are real. That's why stereotypes exist, because they have a basis in fact. Falsely impersonating a Muslim is not an acceptable substitute for legitimate civic oversight. We call for a prompt criminal investigation into the conduct depicted in the videos and appropriate prosecution if investigators determined that Minnesota laws were violated. No laws were violated in any way. Thank you to Teresa Pagano. Teresa, appreciate that $20 rant. She says, Zach, did you see this? It came out at, you know what? I did see it because my friend BX posted it. We might as well bring it up. I didn't actually grab the tweet. So yes, there is, okay. Do you guys remember when that young man was shot in the ear by his stepfather and he caught it on camera? Okay. He ended up calling the police on his stepfather in the video. He looks down, there's blood coming from him. You didn't know because you couldn't see him. You didn't know exactly where he was hit. It was just kind of a shocking thing. You're like, geez, oh, Pete, what kind of a crazy household is this dude living in? So he calls the cops. His stepdad gets arrested, but then the police figure out that he's a member of 764, one of these satanic online grooming pedophile murder gangs. So anyways, Kyle Williams Spitz, he's from Tennessee. Today, he got sentenced to 77 years in prison for the production of child sexual abuse material. This was one of the things that he was doing as a member of 764. He was grooming little girls online and then getting them to send him the CSAM, and then he was using it to blackmail them. He is a certified piece of shit, and I'm so glad that his dad shot him in the ear because that put him on the radar of prosecutors and police. Now, following his imprisonment, he was also sentenced to lifetime supervised release, and he will be required to register with state sex offender registries and comply with special sex offender conditions. But, you know, he's got a 77-year sentence. I don't know that he's ever going to get out, and I tend to think that he's probably going to get worked up while he's in prison. The department is pledged to take out online predator networks, and today's sentence is one step towards justice for the family and the children harmed by 764, Todd Blanche said. These types of crimes are the worst of the worst, preying on vulnerable children in the name of a violent and twisted ideology. Federal law enforcement will not stop until nihilistic, violent extremist groups and their depraved members are identified and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Today's sentencing sends a strong message that this FBI and our Department of Justice partners will relentlessly hold accountable any individual who preys on children, Kash Patel said. As we've made clear from the beginning, the FBI is laser focused on identifying, locating, and arresting any participants in nihilistic, violent extremist networks. And we have dedicated personnel across all 50 states working on these high priority investigations. Kash never gets any credit for doing this. I mean, he has brought down numerous pedophile networks, both online and in the real world, saved countless children as a result. Not perfect by any means, but this is a good thing. So anyways, Spitz is one of the original members of an extremist group known as Harm Nation and 764, and was committed to bringing about the downfall of society through terrorism, specifically by targeting children and other vulnerable people, and then extorting them to engage in criminal sexual conduct, self-harm, and mass casualty events. Today's sentence of 77 years is the longest federal sentence ever imposed on a nihilistic, violent extremist, and it sends a strong message that civil society will not tolerate such depravity. I love to see it. I'm very, very happy to see it. Let me see if I can actually find that video. I'll go to BX's Twitter account because I know she's shared it. June 8th. These people are getting arrested all the time. So many of these people have been arrested since President Trump came back into power. Here is Spitz right here. You can see he's got that pedo stare, the 1,000-yard stare. Oh, so both his mom and his stepdad are dead. I think his mom might have died of a drug overdose after he got arrested. I mean, who the hell wants to be alive in this situation? All right, so after a full day of arguments, the prosecutors argued successfully for enhancements to the maximum sentence based on Kyle's involvement with 764. Kyle Spitz's dad, Michael Spitz, is serving 70 months in prison for witness tampering. I guess that his dad tried to get one of the girls that Kyle had groomed and was blackmailing to not testify against his son. The prosecution also alleged that Kyle is running a devil worship cult modeled after 764 with other inmates while in the county jail. Spitz went viral in 2023 for a video of his mom's boyfriend shooting him in the ear. He was later arrested and charged with multiple counts of child exploitation. The FBI said that he has victimized at least 30 children during his time in 764, and the sentence was absolutely expected because this guy was such a depraved lunatic. Did you guys see this video of Kelly Loeffler? She is tall. She is tall, and I think maybe she shouldn't have worn these shoes. This is a very odd video.
We're all ready, so.
Okay. Administrator, we have some questions for you here at TikTok.
What's going on, Mac?
First of all, are you in the cabinet?
Well, actually, I am. After I had an incredible conversation with the president by phone to become SBA administrator, he texted me and said, actually,
it's kind of an awkward video. Thank you again to Teresa. It's Tony Man. He says, okay, try this again. Zach and Lisa, hope you're doing well. Doing great, Tony. Did you comment before and I missed it? Yeah, I don't have, there are no other rants from you in there. So thank you, Tony. I hope you're doing well, brother. Glad to see you there. Hutchie also says $20. Thank you for that, my friend. He says, I really appreciate your news reports. You hit the highlights that are important to me, but don't have the time to glean from multiple sites. I am glad that I can offer you, glad that I can offer that for you. Yes, people saying she looks fake. Is she a giraffe? Is she a bot? She is a very tall woman. I just never realized it before because I've never seen her from outside of a podium. But it's an odd video. And anyways, best to Kelly Loeffler, but you are tall, woman. Also, a Principal Enigma says, under a different context, let the Salem witch hunts begin. This is just one more example of the spiritual insanity that is infecting our society. Yes, you are correct. Yeah, it looks very hard for her to walk in those heels. That's why I said I don't think the heels were the best choice. And you don't need them. I mean, you are so tall already. All right, we also have some news about Abdul al-Sayed, the Democrat candidate for U.S. Senate in Michigan. Apparently, his mother worked for a terror-linked group that funded Osama bin Laden, the Taliban, and Hamas. And his half-sister is also a radical leftist professor at the University of Chicago who had assaulted a police officer, kind of like Jill Stein. But his mother literally worked for a group that was funding terrorism. You can see that right here. This is a group called IARA, I-A-R-A. They provided direct financial support to Osama bin Laden, the Taliban, and Hamas. Now, Jacqueline El-Sayed married El-Sayed's father, Mohammed El-Sayed, not long after he immigrated to the U.S. in the early 80s, with another person, Fatin Fatih El-Komi, the U.S. Senate candidate's father. They ended up getting divorced. El-Sayed said of his birth parents during a 2017 speech, and my mother, she remarried a gentleman who was working as a translator in the Middle East and then moved back to the Middle East. From 1999 to at least 2024, his mother worked for the Islamic American Relief Agency, which is also known as the Islamic African Relief Agency. They operated over 40 offices throughout the world. Ostensibly, their work was for healthcare, orphans, and disadvantaged people in areas of conflict. But as we know, these nonprofit relief 501c3 organizations, they can frequently get away with things that otherwise you would not be able to. And in October of 2004, the U.S. Department of Treasury designated their worldwide network, along with 5 senior officials, as an organization that supports terrorism, which included the ones that I mentioned previously. Now, these revelations add yet another layer of disgustingness to El-Sayed as he is battling Mike Rogers for the open Senate seat. We'll see what the people of Michigan decide to do when they go to the ballot box in November. But hopefully they don't vote for commie Islamists. All right. Now, this is a story that I actually just learned about yesterday, and it's pretty depressing. So this young man right here was killed by these 5 young men right here. And he was 25 years old, and he was fatally shot in what's being described as a jealousy-fueled attack. This killing took place in Janesville, Wisconsin, and it's not like a bad area. Has a fairly low population of black people versus white people, and it was unusual for the area because they normally don't have this kind of crime. But Jason Kaplan, the young man who is now dead, he was at a bar and he was video chatting with a woman. I'm sorry. He was video chatting with a Mantez Granger. And Mantez Granger saw his ex-girlfriend with Jason Kaplan and became enraged because his ex-girlfriend was with another man. And I don't know if the fact that he was white had anything to do with the rage, but the prosecutors say Granger and then these other 4 men confronted Kaplan and the people that he was with, and they forced him, essentially kidnapped him and took him to a nearby home. The charging documents allege that Demetrius Cooper, which is this one right here, Demetrius Cooper knocked Kaplan to the ground, and then when he was on the ground, shot him in the back. And then Tashawn Howe, which is this one in the, messed that up, which is this one down here on the bottom left. Tashawn Howe is accused of standing over the ex-girlfriend's father and then shooting him in the chest. And then a woman who was there was also shot in the thigh. And then another person was pistol whipped, struck in the face with a firearm, and young Jason Kaplan died as a result of getting shot in the back. Now, all 5 of these men are facing charges which include intentional first-degree homicide and attempted first-degree intentional homicide, and they are all being held with high bonds. This is not a blue area, so they're not going to be let out of jail. But the reason we're talking about it is because I don't see anybody else talking about it. I don't see this being discussed nationally. Now, if this was a young black man who was kidnapped along with a girl and her father by 5 white men, it would be front page news and it would be on every single mainstream media platform everywhere. But young Jason Kaplan doesn't have the luxury of being somebody that the media wants to talk about. So this is a cold-blooded killing where 5 young men, for absolutely no reason at all, Jason wasn't even dating this girl. He just happened to be in proximity to her. They took him and they killed him, and they attempted to kill the ex-girlfriend's father, and somebody else got shot in the leg. It's absolutely disgusting, and it's horrible. I hate having to discuss it, but it needs to be said. Thank you again, Principal Enigma. Thank you to Sean Joe for the cookie. Thank you to Ginger for the cookie. Thank you to Sean Joe for the can and the cookie. Thank you to Ginger for 2 more cookies and Sean Joe for another cookie. Filter Dog drops a can and says a DSA national co-chair claims Cuba's communist dictatorship is more democratic than America. All right. Yeah, these people are just effing retarded. Brewbark, thank you for the cookie. Hoping you'll report on the Italian bank that accepts cheese as collateral for loans. This is news to me. I never heard of this. If you want to send me the information, I'll talk about it tomorrow. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. And then also thank you for gifting that bronze tier subscription to Gigi. Sean Joe also gifted a subscription to CL Goober. And Trump 1 dropped a cookie and said, Zach, thanks for all your hard work bringing us the news. I appreciate you, Trump 1. Sean Joe also gifted a bronze tier subscription to Trump 1. Thank you for that. And Ginger dropped a cookie. I appreciate you guys. All right. Now, Principal Enigma says, sounds like an opportunity for Limburger. Well, whatever it is, if you, I can't imagine them giving cheese as collateral for loans. It's got to be some valuable cheese. All right. So, President Trump has just taken another L in the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. Of course, this is temporary. It will, of course, be adjudicated at the level of the Supreme Court. But this was an upholding of a pretty ridiculous injunction. It basically stops ICE and CBP agents from arresting illegal aliens who are hiding in a church. So the senior circuit judge, Barbara Milano Keenan, who was appointed by Barack Hussein Obama, wrote the opinion, and she was joined by another Obama appointee, Pamela Harris, and a Bush appointee, Steve Agee. So for decades, federal immigration agencies generally restricted enforcement actions near churches or houses of worship or other sensitive locations. And the Biden administration wrote a policy in 2021 that required prior approval for most operations taking place in what are considered protected areas. They preserved exceptions for emergencies, national security threats, hot pursuit. If you're chasing somebody and they run into a church, you can go ahead and go after them. But after President Trump came back into office, he rescinded that framework and he told officers to use their discretion and a healthy dose of common sense and just go after people where they were. Now, DHS made their position unmistakable when they announced that criminals will no longer be able to hide in America's schools and churches to avoid arrest. And the administration said they are not going to tie the hands of their agents. So Quaker meetings, the Sikh Temple in Sacramento, and the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship all sued the Trump administration, arguing that this increased threat of enforcement was driving immigrant congregants away and forcing faith communities to change how they worship and minister. So the record included declarations from one Baptist congregation's English as a second language program saying they had suffered a 66% attendance drop. Are they worried about the attendance dropping, or are they worried about the collection plate getting lighter? There were fewer people who were using the food and clothing ministries. Well, that means that American citizens who need the assistance can use it. And there were some congregations that were considering locking doors, even though their faith called on them to remain open and welcoming. At the preliminary injunction stage, the Fourth Circuit held that the evidence was enough to show a likely substantial burden on communal worship and ministry under RFRA, and the court also found the attendance losses predictable enough to support standing. First of all, illegal aliens should not be welcomed. Okay. Like, I understand the whole thing. I get it. All right. But by welcoming these illegal aliens into these congregations and giving them safe harbor, these people, these pastors, these ministers, these people of faith are helping to victimize American citizens, because it gives these illegal aliens safe harbor as they decide when and where to make their next move and who it is they're going to rape or murder next. So anyways, there was a block to this that came in February of 2025. The injunction was rather narrow. It applied only to the identified places of worship that were affiliated with the plaintiffs. There were other houses of worship that if they wanted to stop ICE from coming in, they would have to sign or file their own lawsuits. It does not stop DHS from making arrests at or near these covered sites if the officers have an administrative or judicial warrant. But the Trump administration will now further seek review or continue litigating the merits. I am certain of it, because they need to be able to arrest these people where they are. All right. Now, we also have a horrifying case where this young man right here, who is an illegal alien in Fairfax County, Virginia, was just arrested for the brutal murder of a young mother. Well, a mother, maybe not that young, but he stabbed her and murdered her on a jogging trail in Great Falls, Virginia. He is a Salvadoran illegal alien, and he was caught and released at the border of El Paso in Mexico by the Biden regime in April of 2024. Fairfax County Police announced the arrest of 19-year-old Alexis Antonio Cedillos Campos this morning in conjunction with the stabbing, killing of Carmen Lizette Pook on Monday, and they released this photo of his arrest. So there is more information about this. Apparently, it's being reported that Pook was 42 years old and had a young daughter, and that also she was sleeping with this illegal alien. So his name is Alexis Antonio Cedillos Campos, and he's charged with the second-degree murder. The child of the murder victim is 3 years old. They were co-workers at Bites Restaurant in Herndon. The two were sleeping together, and they are still looking for a motive. There are other aspects of the intimate relationship that involve other people, police have said. And there is video of him arming himself with a large knife, taking black latex gloves, and then he takes a water bottle, and he actually filled it up with gasoline. He tried to set her corpse on fire after he stabbed her to death. And then he lured her to this park so that he could murder her and then roll her into the river. So here is the police discussing the charges and the murder after they arrested him. And it just goes to show you that third world problems will come with third world migrants.
Thanks, Chief. On Monday morning at 6:43 a.m., officers from the McLean District Station responded to Difficult Run Park, where they located our victim, Carmen Pooch, deceased. And as the chief stated, she was suffering from multiple stab wounds and had been doused in gasoline. Detectives from our Major Crimes Bureau have acted very quickly to process the crime scene, collect evidence, and conduct interviews. Within 48 hours, and emphasize within 48 hours, our detectives were successfully able to identify the suspect, that's 19-year-old Alexis Cedillos Campos, and they learned that he and our victim were known to each other as co-workers and involved in an intimate relationship. We know that Cedillos Campos left work in the early morning hours on Monday. He left work after taking a large fixed blade knife, a pair of gloves, and the water bottle the chief described. He later filled that water bottle with gasoline, and he set off to murder Carmen Pooch. This morning, our suspect was taken into custody for second-degree murder in Maryland. I want to thank...
Why not first-degree murder? I mean, it was very clearly premeditated. I feel maybe they're going to bring a superseding indictment for first-degree murder after a grand jury looks at it, but clearly this guy planned it out. And I guess I have a question, too. Why was this American mother of 42 years old, a single mom, sleeping with a 19-year-old illegal alien? I tend to think that she put herself in a position which led to her own murder, but it still doesn't excuse the fact that this kid did it.
Our detectives from the Fugitive Squad, the U.S. Marshals Service, and the Prince George's County Police Department for swiftly taking this violent killer off the street.
She was apparently stabbed many times.
Of 2024.
All right, let's get more now as we await this press conference. Bill Malugin here in Washington with the latest. Bill.
Hey, John, good afternoon to you. As you know, Fairfax County has turned into a hot spot for migrant crime due to their sanctuary policies and their flat-out refusal to cooperate with ICE. And now there's been yet another murder there, allegedly at the hands of an illegal alien caught and released by the Biden administration. Fairfax.
Just look at his eyes. He's got that dead-eyed stare. And I mean, I always wonder.
Thanks, Chief.
I always wonder what happened to these people to turn them into the monsters they are. Thank you very much to Filter Dog for dropping the link on X to the cheese bank. Let's go ahead and check it out. All right. So this $200 million bank is backed by Parmesan cheese and is lending people money for cheese. This is in northern Italy. Credito Emiliano treats cheese like gold. The bank currently holds 430,000 wheels of Parmesan worth around $200 million. Real Parmesan takes 2 to 3 years to get ready. This leaves farmers with millions of dollars in premature products they can't sell while still needing to pay for cows, bills, and workers. So by using young cheese as a security for a loan, farmers get cash immediately. This is actually brilliant. By using young cheese, they get the money for loans immediately. The bank provides up to 80% of the value up front, so these businesses stay running while the loan is active. The cheese stays in high-tech vaults where experts look at it. If a farmer can't pay, the bank simply sells the aged cheese for a profit. This is awesome. Wow, thank you for telling me about this. I got to turn that down so I don't get a ding on YouTube. But yeah, I guess I did know that Parmesan takes several years to age and that it is highly valuable, but I had no idea that they were doing it. This is great, though. Clearly, very cool. Money based on real world goods. Good stuff. Thank you again, Filter Dog. Principled Enigma says a worthy mission for a local church would be to teach the balance between grace and justice. Keeping the law indicates who we are. Breaking it also indicates who we are. I also saw this last night, and I had to laugh out loud. Again, leftists are always saying he had a legal work registration. He had papers. Well, It doesn't matter who you are in Trump 2.0. If you're an illegal alien, you're going to get arrested. It's been reported that the San Diego Padres minor league catching coordinator, Osvaldo Jose Pereira, has been taken into custody by immigration enforcement officials in El Paso, Texas. Now, according to the New York Post, Pereira was detained at El Paso's processing center after taken into custody at El Paso International Airport. The team released the following statement. We recently became aware of the detainment of our minor league catching coordinator. We are working to gather additional information and will not have any further comment at this time. Now, here's the thing. This guy may have been working for the Padres, but he came here from Venezuela in 2014 and applied for asylum. Family members want you to know he had a valid work authorization. However, the family also says he was not carrying any paperwork when he left his home in Arizona for the business trip to Texas. ICE, for their part, says they detained Pereira. They noted the coach was not carrying his documents, and the DHS will continue his removal proceedings. They're going to go ahead and remove him. DHS also added that applications for asylum and work permits do not in themselves confer legal residency status. His family says he did everything lawfully as the U.S. asked, except trying to get citizenship or a green card. He could have got an H-1B visa. The Padres could have got him an H-1B visa, but they didn't. He played for the Texas Rangers from 2009 to 2011 and then returned to Venezuela and then came back in 2014 and worked as a coach, but he never got citizenship. So that's what I meant to play. All right. We also have a case of a federal jury in Georgia convicting a man who was a naturalized U.S. citizen of laundering more than $2.7 million. He stole this money from American citizens through online fraud schemes. His name is Babajide Adeseo. He's 41 of Douglasville, Georgia. He was found guilty in early August after an 8-day trial, and the jury convicted him on 2 counts of conspiracy to commit money laundering and 16 counts of transactional money laundering. A U.S. government source confirms that Adeseo is an American citizen who became naturalized in 2015. Not anymore, bucko. The fraud operation ran from April 2020 to September 2021. Scammers would pose online as friends, business associates, or romantic partners to gain their victims' trust. Adeseo was a key member of a complex transnational network that preyed upon the elderly, siphoned their retirement savings overseas, mainly to China, Hong Kong, and Nigeria, to make recovery impossible. As a prolific money launderer, Adeseo facilitated the theft of nearly $3 million from victims and continued even after he was indicted, arrested, and released on bond. Now he's behind bars awaiting a significant sentence, and this incorrigible swindler will face the full consequences of his actions. Prosecutors said the scammers built relationships with their targets before asking for money under false pretenses. They claimed, among other things, they needed business equipment, they had been jailed, or they were dealing with medical problems. Some victims were persuaded to hand over hundreds of thousands of dollars, which included their retirement funds and personal savings. This is why I warned everybody about Elon Musk sending you messages on X. It doesn't have to be Elon Musk. It can be anybody. People are diabolical. And if they get into your inbox, they can very easily socially engineer a relationship with you and then convince you that they're your friends and that you need to help them out. Don't do it. Please, God, don't do it. Don't send crypto. Don't send cash. Don't send Western Union. Do not do it. So this money laundering didn't stop even after he was arrested in 2024. While he was on bond, he continued receiving money through this fraud scheme to his own business accounts and then through accounts that were belonging to others. And then he quickly withdrew and transferred the funds after they arrived. I want to see do we have a picture of this man? Because I can't tell what country he immigrated from by that name. No, thanks. Yeah. Let me do a quick search. I want to see if we got a picture of his face. I want to fully expose him. Babajide Adeseo. It kind of sounds like maybe African or something. Yep, I was right. Here he is, Bada Jide Adeseo, 41-year-old Nigerian. So long, I can't wait to see him denaturalized. All right, guys. President Trump, unfortunately, was learned yesterday by the Supreme Court, maybe several days ago, that they were not going to allow the reconsideration of E. Jean Carroll's verdict, which means that he immediately had to pay her $5.6 million. She sucks. I hate her. All right. That will be all for today, my friends. We're going to go ahead and close it out there. I hope everybody had a great day. Hope you enjoyed the show. I know I certainly enjoyed the show, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow, where I'll be back right here at 5 p.m. Eastern for another exciting episode of Red Pill News Live, where I will bring you the top stories of the day and try to inform you to the best of my ability. Now I'm going to go ahead and set up a raid for you guys, and I'll send you to another channel. Let me just, I think I'll send you over to my boy, Frankie. All right, guys, have a wonderful day. Good luck. God bless. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.